And then the other angle of that word is some of it can feel like bullshit. Some of it can create feelings of anger, frustration, relationships, job, you name it, that just the stuff in life that we can get frustrated with. How do you take the true, what we may put a label on as negative or not what we want to be happening?
Hey there, Vibers. Welcome to the Vibe with Kai podcast, where we keep it real, we keep it relatable, and we keep it a little bit funny as we dive into all things mental health, ADHD, and introversion. My name is Kai. I'm your host, and each week we're going to tackle life struggles with honesty, humor, and a whole lot of heart. So whether you're here for practical advice or a little validation or just a laugh about what life is like as an adult in today's world, listen, you are in the right place. We are not about toxic positivity here. We are all about being genuine to each other and to ourselves. And we're talking about real things. And we want to encourage each other and remind you that you are not alone. With that said, my friends, sit back, relax, and let's vibe through this together and enjoy today's episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast.
What up, Vibers? It's your boy, Kai. Welcome to another episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. In today's episode, we're diving into how to turn life's mess into magic. And my guest today is the amazing Dr. Jodi Blinco, founder of the U School, ZenLeader, and Yoga Cowgirl. She is a serial entrepreneur, breakthrough coach, and wellness expert who helps people lead with their heart and with power and with peace. And we'll talk all about her new book, Inner Alchemy, and how to handle chaos without losing yourself in that chaos. And trust me, this conversation is the type of conversation that I love to have. And I want to welcome our guest today, Dr. Jodi Blinco. Hi, Dr. Jodi. How are you?
Hi, Kai. Thank you so much for having me. I am fantastic and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. As I was like prepping for this interview, and I was looking more into you, I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm excited to like have a conversation with you about a variety of things. But I want to kind of start from the jump here. I want to so the audience can get to know you a little bit. You have worn so many hats in your life: founder, coach, speaker, yoga cowgirl. You've done so much. What was the first spark that set you down this path of transformation?
Wow. So I'm going to give you two responses to that because I think the two responses connect the skill leadership development part of what I do, and then also the holistic yoga wellness part of what I do. So the first spark on the skill development, when I started my career in higher education, I started as a counselor where I was talking to students, helping them figure out, if the choice of the school was the right fit. Fast forward, when I first started in that role, I was really struggling. I just couldn't find my way. I couldn't really figure out how to have an authentic conversation that felt like me, that was also connecting with the student. And I didn't want to come into work every day. I wasn't being successful. I wasn't confident in what I was doing. I was having a really hard time, so much so that my boss sat me down and had the, "Is this the best fit for you?" conversation. And I was like, I've got to figure this out. And so that spark of knowing that no one wants to come into their job every day and not feel a sense of success or confidence. Nobody wants that weighing on them. So that was the spark there to say, hey, if there's a way for me to package this information and really have the passion to develop curriculum and tools and resources that can help just the corporate skill development sector in general, that's what I want to do, because I want people to feel that sense of traction and success and confidence. And then, the yoga side of the equation, I was about 8 years after the example that I just gave you, I was really starting to climb the leadership ladder, if you will, in the corporate space.
Sure.
But I was struggling with the chaos of it all, and the pleasing and the seeking the approval and wanting to be good enough, and just the chaos of the day to day, which I think we can all relate to. And I went to yoga as initially a form of physical exercise, and then I found this connection that was so much deeper that just kept me coming back and coming back. And at that point in time, I really couldn't even put my finger on it, but I knew that it helped me feel better. I knew that it was helping me process the chaos in the day to day so much easier. And so that started me down the path of more yoga, all the way to the point where I
Sure.
had a studio at one point. I'm a teacher, and that's what ZenLeader is all about. But I'll stop there. Those were the two sparks that really have ignited this
Yeah.
path that I'm on.
And you've helped so many people with this with your journey and your story and how everything went for you. And one thing that stood out to me about you is in your new book, Inner Alchemy, you talk about, and I quote here because I love this, turning everyday bullshit into sunshine.
Yes.
I
Yes.
I love that. Can you talk about what that phrase means to you personally?
Yeah. I think there is so much magic in the mundane of every day. And I think that we can have a tendency to overlook that or feel like, well, I'm just
Hmm.
going through the motions, I'm going through the routine. And so, in essence, that can essentially feel like that's part of the bullshit, right? It's just the
Yeah.
everyday. Not that we want to have a negative lens on it. That's not what I'm suggesting, but
Hmm.
like the mundane, the
It's a real
routine.
way to look at it. It's
Yep.
real. Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then the other angle of that word is some of it can feel like bullshit. Some of it can create feelings of anger, frustration, um, relationships, job, you name it, that just the stuff in life that we can get frustrated with. How do you take the
Mhm.
true, what we may put a label on as negative or not what we want to be happening, and transform that, transmute that, change that into something that can be of power and good and
Sure.
really magic for you.
Right. Right, right. I love because I work in the corporate world, right, and in the
Mhm.
business world, and you work with a lot of teams, executives, individuals. And you probably see my cat in the background.
Yep.
In the
Yeah.
background, they usually make some appearances. Can you? A lot of people that listen to this and watch this uh, are in the corporate world, are in the business world. You work with a lot of those people. What are some common struggles that you see a lot of these people have on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind, and I struggled with this quite a bit. I don't want to say that I've healed it per se, because I think we're always evolving and growing, but the seeking
Right.
of approval to be good enough. And not that that's a bad thing, right? Because we all want to be good at what we do, and we want to
Mhm.
feel a sense of purpose. But I think where it becomes dangerous is when we end up a year, 5 years, 10 years down the line, we look back and we've become someone that we don't even recognize because we've been trying to
True.
fill this role, be this person, get the
Mhm.
um the old saying of the golden handcuffs, right? You're in this job
Mhm.
because of the money or the title, and
Mhm.
it ends up creating a deeper and deeper hole within yourself that a lot of times folks struggle to figure out, how do I make this transition, how do I get out of it? I know I'm not
Mhm.
happy, but fill in the blank, this is keeping me here. And so I think that seeking approval, losing your authenticity, that's a big part of the work that I do with ZenLeader, is how to help
Mhm.
women find that sense of confidence that's authentic to them, not the happy face that we put on and
Mhm.
that go through the
Masking it,
motions.
yeah.
Yeah, the mask,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so those are two that really come to mind that I think are common struggles, because it's this seeking behavior that, as long as you are feeling authentic to yourself and you feel
Mhm.
fulfilled, and you don't feel like every day you go into this place that takes more and more from your soul, or you show up on the virtual meeting, and you're like, oh my gosh, if I have to sit through another meeting, I'm going to
Mhm.
die. Like, there are so many ripple effects of that feeling that I think we lose sight of. We think that we're just showing up to
Yeah.
work or showing up to get a paycheck, and I think those are two that are front and center for me. The third one that I'll give you, and then we can transition, is the and I'll speak to this as a woman. I think women who are listening can probably relate to this. feeling like you have to shrink or hide your voice, or maybe you haven't even really found your voice in the corporate space because
Yeah.
you are talked over, not sought out, or diminished. And I'm a firm believer that everybody creates their own path, regardless of gender. However, I do think there's some very real components to uh, the boys club in the corporate world, and the
Absolutely.
boys club is real and
Absolutely.
it has real impacts on
Mhm.
women.
Absolutely. And I think what I appreciate about you, Dr. Jody, is that like you spend a lot of your time talking about what you're just talking about, like especially on the leadership side, but you don't just teach it, you don't just talk about it, you are somebody that's living it too. You are still
Yeah.
actively involved in this world, and you spend so much time teaching others, and I'm curious, like, are there times that you have to sit there and remind you to take like your own advice sometimes, like if you ever find yourself in that situation, you're like, okay, what what did I say that if somebody else was in this situation, how would I tell them to handle it? Do you find yourself often like reminding yourself of that?
100%. Like, if you
Sure.
could see the other side of this screen, I'm actually sitting in front of a window and there are little note
Yeah.
cards with mantras and reminders
Yeah.
that I
Hmm.
have to keep front and center, because we're all human. Like, that is the core connector, no matter where we come from, what we
Yes.
do, what we're about. We're all human beings. So we all struggle with emotions and feelings and anxieties and fears and
Hmm.
triggers, and I think when, especially in leadership, it, I take this perspective in my coaching work, and with any of the work that I do, is that we're all human beings. We're doing the best that we can with the information that we have in the moment. And
Yes.
I,
Yes.
I think that's twofold, right? You can, because we're human beings, it's easy to judge other people. It's easy to be angry or frustrated. So
Yeah.
that's a tool that I use often when I find myself in that space where I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I feel slighted, I feel like I've been
Hmm.
disrespected, I feel whatever it is. That, hey, they're just a human being doing the best they can with what they've got right now. And then to answer your question that you asked, yes, all the time. I there are moments daily that I sit back and say, okay, what coaching would you provide to someone else around this? Like,
Right.
listen to your own words right now. But the
Yeah.
humanness in me is coming out, like, wait a minute, no, I these feelings are real for me right now,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's why I appreciate what you do so much, and why so many people gravitate towards what you talk about, because again, you are actively living this and learning this as well. And my personal mantra, like, and you said it bar for bar, is we're doing the best we can with what we got.
Yes.
You know, like that's
Yes.
all we can do sometimes. I want to talk about inner alchemy a little bit, because
Mhm.
I find this fascinating. This book, what inspired you? What is it about? What inspired you to write it, and who was it for?
Yeah. Um So, in full honesty and vulnerability and transparency, this book took about 6, 7 years to bring to life, not because I was
Sure.
mulling over every single word. I did in the editing process, trust me, but
Hmm.
it was more of
I'm with you. I'm
overcoming.
like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. The fear and the voice up here that was saying, nobody's going to read this. Nobody, this is just, you know, it's that questioning, that self-doubt, that fear of rejection. This is a part of my soul. This is a part of me. And if I put this out there and it flops, or it really doesn't resonate, what does that say about me? So there was so much mental work that had to be
Mm,
done to just finally say, go, like, this
yeah.
is, and there's an evolution of just self-worth in there, all in the same time, to feel confident enough to finally put it out there. But going back to your question of kind of what inspired it, who is it for, I wanted Inner Alchemy to be a book that you could pick up, and if you wanted to go to page 86 and read the story that's on page 86, you could do it in 5 or 10 minutes. if you were having a
Mhm.
day where you needed a quick hit of inspiration, or you needed to read a story that humanizes whatever you're feeling and going through, you could pick it up, grab it, walk away and go, okay, somebody else has been there. Somebody else made it through. And
Yeah.
I think that goes back to the inspiration for me of oftentimes we can feel alone in our struggles, or feel like we're the
Yes.
only ones experiencing this, or that there's
Mhm.
something wrong with us because we are experiencing this. And that is part of the core of what it's about, and the offering behind it is I wanted someone else to be able to read experiences from my journey, because that's really the bulk of the book, are just quick hit experiences and stories where I was sharing this
Mhm.
real-time processing of, hey, I went for a run today and I hate running, I despise running, and these were the moments that I had, and this is how I turned it around. So
Sure.
it's small experiences and stories to humanize, to validate, to inspire, and to help somebody be able to shift that mental energy in real time by reading one of these experiences. And so I would say it's for anybody. It's for anybody that has had, and I can't
Great.
remember it verbatim, and I should know this, but I have a copy I could grab down and read it to you. But the dedication, or the opener on the book talks about, this is for anybody that's ever struggled, that's ever uh, wanted to see the light at the end of the tunnel on the journey. Like, that's the heart of where it comes from.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I see you, I've got you, I've been there, it's okay, just keep going. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think I love that you tend to blend humor with healing,
Yeah.
which I really appreciate, because I make content the same way. I always find that adding a little sense of levity to these conversations is really helpful, because number one, it makes it a little bit easier to digest.
Hmm.
Number two, it starts the conversation, and number three, I think sometimes it just helps people fully understand the topic that we're talking about. And it's hard, because the things that you help people with, it's really difficult stuff,
Hmm.
that they're dealing with on a daily basis, and it can get dark at times, but you find a way to blend humor with healing. And I'm curious, how purposeful is that? How, like, why do you feel laughter and just general humor is such a powerful tool when it comes to personal growth?
I love this question. And I love your connection of the humor and the healing together. I will share with you that I don't know that well, I do know I haven't always done that. For a very long time, it was very serious
Sure.
stuff and it needed to be handled. And that was,
Hmm.
but I think that was coming more from a place of me struggling with finding my own authenticity and connecting to being willing to be vulnerable enough to let my guard down, to share pieces of my story, to then be able to bring that humor in and lighten
Hmm.
that and create a sense of levity, because then you're not only working with the humor and the healing together, you're coming from a place of real authenticity, because you're just showing up as you're showing up, and
Yeah.
when we're human like this, we're talking, we're laughing, we're having a good time, and that's part of the reason people can connect to
Hmm.
it, right? It's real. And I will
Yeah.
share this too. I love this line. Dr. Barbara Lansing, she said this to me. She is a professor, I'm drawing a blank on the school. It's in Southern California. She does a lot of coaching and development work, trauma informed practices. And she shared with me, she said, human beings are exquisite detectors of bullshit. And that
Yes.
phrase to me,
Yes.
I loved it because it captures so much of what we see, especially in the corporate world, where everybody, you have
Hmm.
to look like
Yes.
this, sit like this, talk like this. And if you don't,
Ooh.
you're not allowed
Yes.
in the
Hmm.
room. But what's happening in that
Hmm.
process when everybody's showing up like robots, we're all human beings and we're all reading each other, right? That energy, that feel, that
Right.
vibe.
Yes.
Um, we're picking up on
Hmm.
that, and we're
Yeah.
picking up on it from a place of like, all right, this is real, this is good, there's authenticity here. Or we're also reading, I don't know, I'm not sure, there's something going on here that I can't quite put my finger on yet. And we all have that intuitive gift. And so I went a little bit on a goose chase there with that answer, but I think that comes back to, it was my own evolution to connect to myself authentically and be vulnerable. And in that process, the humor came through because the authenticity was there. And I do think I struggled. I always wanted to make that connection with people, but when I was struggling connecting to my own authenticity, there was a block there, right? Because people were like, what they were, because of the block that I was putting off subconsciously, because I wasn't connected yet enough in here, they were sensing that block, and so not connecting as much to the material. So the humor and the healing is all about that journey of, who am I? Really big question, but like, what am I about? Who am I? And being confident in that space and offering that willingly.
Right. I'm a big proponent of authenticity. I think, especially because I post a lot on the social media side, and I tell some of the content creators that I mentor, people can see through your bullshit.
Yep.
And the minute that you are not being your authentic self, people are going to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of content creators personally, uh, and like I'm like, just be you. Like, why are you not being yourself? Just be you.
Yeah.
And then your content's going to become a lot more genuine, and a lot more people are going to be able to connect with you. And I try to lead that way just in life as
Mm-hmm.
well, not just
Mm-hmm.
with content creation. When you're having these just normal conversations with people, are you being your genuine self, or are you masking, or are you trying to fit into this mold that
Yeah.
you think that they want you to be, whatever it may be? But then once you lose yourself, I mean, who are you? You know, how
Yeah.
can you be genuine to yourself or anybody else if you're not being your true self? And I think that's part of like life's chaos, right? And your book talks about embracing life's chaos, right? Which I think is really important. And I
Mm-hmm.
know there's a lot of people that listen to this and watch this that feel like they're knee deep in chaos.
Yeah.
How do you find your way through if you are knee deep in chaos?
And I do think, again, we can all relate to that feeling at different points in life. Some are worse than others. It's this ebb and flow of just moving chaos. I, I think having, I don't want this to sound too cliche, which is why I'm hesitating on it, because where I want to go is having um, tools or resources that provide a sense of grounding or safety. Because I think once we start to spiral in our mind, uh, we are just adding to that chaos and exacerbating whatever feeling is there. And so having tools that can help you slow down and be still in whatever is going on around you, and then have, whether it's a mantra or it's a practice that really works for you. Some it's yoga, it's meditation, it's walking, it's gardening, it's whatever it is. That goes back to that authenticity of you knowing you well enough to know, okay, I'm about ready to go off the deep end in about 10 minutes. I need to go outside and be in some sunshine or take some deep breaths. And if we are always living, acting, being for other people, I don't know that we can really tap into what creates a sense of calm for me.
Sure.
And not to go too far down this path, this is purely my own connection and assumption from my own experiences. For me, I know when I didn't have that level of self connection and self awareness where I knew what tools worked for me, I would reach for other things that would create a false sense of calm. So fill in the blank, whether it's
Oh,
food,
sure.
alcohol, shopping, stuff that's only going to create more chaos long term. But in the moment, it
Yeah.
can have this false sense of soothing. And so, uh, to bring all that full circle, I would say it goes back to that self-awareness, connecting within, knowing yourself well enough to know when that chaos is really got a hold on you and what you need to do to ground down and just grab a moment of peace. You're not going to stop it, right? What's going on around you is you don't have control
Right.
over it. You have control over you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, right. I'm a big proponent, and I talk about this on almost every episode of mine, and that's the phrase "I am the one thing in life I can control," and it's a
Yes.
line from the musical Hamilton, and I just love that because I started to shift my focus from being of try like I used to want to control as many things as I could as opposed to
Mhm.
just focusing on what I can control, which is myself and my reaction to things and how I
Yep.
handle myself in certain situations and so on and so forth. And then once I started to focus on that, I found that just organically it was easier to navigate life.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier
Yes.
to navigate life because you just take this unnecessary stress off of your shoulders and you're able to navigate a lot easier. And you talk about you talk about the quote bullshit season, right?
Mhm.
Which I love. And if somebody that's listening or watching today is in their bullshit season, what is one small shift that they can make to at least start the process of turning things around?
Yeah. I would venture to say that if you're in a bullshit season, it's probably not your first one. Uh,
Yeah,
the old
true.
saying, it's not my first rodeo. And here's the beauty of it, because it's
Yeah.
probably not your first one, you've made it through your other bullshit seasons before. So when you're in the
Yeah.
moment where maybe you start to spiral or worry or anxiety kicks in or whatever's happening in that bullshit
Mhm,
season, be able to look back at the other 1, 2, 5, 10, 50 seasons that you've made it through and
mhm.
think about, what did I learn
Yeah.
from that? Because I guarantee you learned something. What did I learn? How did I
Yeah.
come out of that stronger? And that is the quickest reset I have found for me where I can go, okay, yep, been here before. Um, and what did I gain out of what I was going through? Because then it's not going to last forever. I know that because that didn't last forever.
Sure.
It ended. It's not going to last forever. There's
Mhm,
going to be something that comes from this. And self-servingly, I'm going to gain something from it. I have every other time. It might not look how I want it to look right now. It might not feel how I want it to feel right now, but I know there is an end. So my job, going back to what you said earlier, Kai, hey, the only thing I can do right now is
mhm.
control me. And that's all I have. And that there's so
Absolutely.
much power in
Absolutely.
that. There can be. Um, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and what's great is that you provide a lot of resources for people. So it's not just a matter of just you talking at people. Like you provide actionable resources. One of the things that you have created is this ZenLeader approach to
Yes.
things. And ZenLeader, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a very unique blend of business leadership and inner wellness, and it's made specifically for women. And my one of my personal mentor in the corporate world, her name is Hillary Reed, and she was somebody that hired me like one of my first major jobs out of college. And she's my mentor, and she's been taking care of me ever since. And I would often hear her talk about women in what it's like to be a woman in the corporate world. And
Yeah.
like just as a man, like there was just things that I was just completely blind to, things that I didn't
Hmm.
even realize were issues, were things that that women had to go through, and it opened up my eyes. And I think it's great that you provide this opportunity and this resource for women that are in the business world to focus on being a great leader and taking care of themselves as individuals, right? Can you talk a little bit about Zen Leader, like and what you do to help women in the business world, especially with leadership?
Yeah, I think you just captured Zen leaders so well in everything that you were sharing. The tools that come with that, like you said, it's not just information. I work with
Yeah.
women one on one, small group coaching, um, workshops, speaking experiences, where we are looking at the holistic holistic wellness of the woman leader, and the business principles, things like data analysis, communication, navigating the corporate world and the corporate ladder, and the stuff that, like you said, as a man, you wouldn't have even thought about, but as a woman, they're facing it every single day. So that the business side of that, and what I really am passionate about and believe is different about ZenLeader than any other women's leadership development platform, is not only are we talking about the holistic piece, which I'll dive deeper into here in a moment, but the business side, we're helping women be confident in how they contribute to the bottom line. So one of the skills that I was taught that I believe has helped me tremendously is how to track and analyze data, and then how to take that and turn that into revenue for the organization. So we have a whole component of business and leadership principles in our Foundations of ZenLeader, our masterclass. So we use that masterclass. Folks can purchase it one-on-one. If they just want to autonomously go through the online masterclass, they can take in the material that way. As I said, we also do the one-on-one coaching, the group coaching, or the larger corporate coaching and development sessions. But in that masterclass and through these sessions, there's a business leadership development component. There's also just a women's wellness component, things like hormones, balancing your hormones, and anxieties, and a whole, I think there are 12 meditation tracks in the masterclass that deal with the everyday stuff. Like, I just got out of a meeting and I am ready to go scream because I'm so angry at what happened in the meeting, or how I got, like, there's a meditation for that. There's a meditation for being stuck in traffic. It goes back to the real world application. And then there's also a whole set of resources around going deeper within to understand who you are authentically, what makes you tick, what do you want out of life, the bigger picture. And I think it's really easy to get in the day-to-day and be looking down versus looking up and out. And what do I want? What's in my way? How do I get there? And how do I navigate the current space that I'm in to the best of my ability, so I can tap into that voice, really discover my confidence, and then have that grit along the way.
Right. You mentioned a lot operating from chaos, and when you operate from chaos, it leads to scattered lives, right?
Yes.
So you talk about a thing called calm leadership, which I find really interesting. What is calm leadership, and what does it look like in practice?
Mm-hmm. So, at the risk of sounding like a broken record here, I think a component of calm leadership has to do with connecting inward, so that when everything around you is chaos, and in the day-to-day corporate world, there are plenty of things, if not everything, that you have zero control over, right? What you do have control over is your work, the quality of your work, how you're leading or managing your team. But there is chaos. It's a tornado happening all the time. And so being able to be connected in here, to look outward and say, I don't have control over this. I don't have control over this. Where do I have control? It creates a different energy, which goes back to that calm leadership of, you're able to show up. And if you have direct reports, you're leading a team in leadership. There was a saying that I heard, I can't remember who said it years ago, but they said, you give up the right to have a bad day as a leader, because all eyes are on you all the time. Now, I don't know if that's entirely true, but I think the essence of what it's saying is, people are watching you, and they're watching how you handle whatever comes your way. So if it rains outside and you freak out, they're going to freak out. And the essence of that calm leadership, you have to be able to grab onto something anchoring within you, so that you can show up to lead your people. And there's a saying that a mantra that I still hold true as I'm working with teams nowadays, but be the leader you would follow. How
Mhm.
would I want someone to treat me, handle this situation? And not that we're all
Right.
the same, we're not, but if you're operating from this place of how would I want to feel if I could read between the lines and saw that chaos was happening, how would I want my leader to show up so that I could feel like, okay, we're going to make it through. Whatever this
Right.
looks like, we're going to make it. And so that calm leadership, and how do you get there? Again, I don't know that we need to recreate the wheel necessarily, but it goes back to that anchor, the awareness, the inward focus. And I would say another element to this that we haven't talked about is being able to identify your leadership principles. What do you
Mhm.
stand for? What are you about? How do you want to show up? I had a mentor years ago. He would call it your leadership brand, which I'm sure he didn't
Mhm.
coin that phrase, but I'm sure
Sure.
it's out there. But like when you think about you as a product and an experience, what is the experience that you want your people to have when they come in to work
Mhm.
for you? What do you want that to feel like, look like, sound like? And then you're not changing with every direction of the chaos and the wind that blows in the organization. You're able to stay anchored in, this is the world that I get an opportunity to create for my people. And this is what this world looks like, sounds like, feel. This is what they can expect. They want consistency. They want to feel a certain way. And that's the opportunity that you have to create that kind of calm leadership culture.
Right, which is great, and it's what's cool is that you have like these your program has like these pillars,
Hmm.
and one of the pillars that stands out to me is ROI, right?
Yes.
I work in marketing, right? I've worked in
Yeah.
marketing
You know
for
ROI well.
15 years
Yeah.
now. ROI, like between like that's like the main thing that we're going for,
Yes.
right? But for from your perspective, one of the things that I appreciate, because like usually when people think ROI, they think obviously like a return on investment, they think of the money side of it, like how I'm spending this much,
Mhm.
how much am I getting back, right? One of the things that you have done is you help people judge their ROI for like their own energy, like protecting their own energy and themselves. I guess in a
Yes.
way, if I'm not mistaken, like holding themselves accountable in a way. So how can somebody start measuring and protecting their energy, like in the same manner that they protect their money?
Yes. Yeah, the energy ROI. And again, you've
Yeah,
set that up really well. Your understanding of that and the way that you presented it is right on. It is about, it goes back to a little bit of what we've talked about earlier of where are you spending mental energy, physical energy,
sure.
emotional energy, and thinking about what are you getting back from that? Is it just this endless hole that you keep pouring into that's draining you? And in the Zen Leader Masterclass, there's a resource called the Energy ROI Balance Sheet. And so this step, which goes back to your question of where would we start with that? Take a piece of paper, pen and paper, and write down the top 3 or 5 things that you know, because you know you better than anybody else,
Yeah.
that you know come up for you in the day to day as being where you spend a lot of time, right? What and
Mhm.
not so much physical time, although it can be, but what consumes you in the day to day. And again, think of consumption. We read things, we hear things, we think about things, we do things. What is consuming the time in your day? And then
Mhm.
connecting closely to that as you're writing this down, how do you feel about that? How does that make you feel?
Right.
Does it make you feel productive? Does it make you feel
Mhm.
drained? What is the feeling that goes with the activity? That's where the magic is in there. Because when you start to look at the feeling, you can say, I am drained when I do this every day, all day, or this person, this
Mhm.
relationship, this task. And so you end up with this balance sheet to be able to say, I spend a ton of energy. Maybe it's for you creating content, but I love it. It feeds me, it
Mhm.
fulfills me, it makes me,
Yeah.
you know, um, and then the same can hold true for something that you have on the spreadsheet that you say, I dread this and it's not feeding me. And so then you ask yourself, what is the micro step for me to, you're not going to change necessarily the energy that you are getting from it. You might be able to, but that's typically more, you have to control something external to you. It's more about what is the micro step that I can take to say, does this stay on my balance sheet at the level that it currently is? Or do I need to take some actions to chip away at this so I don't have to feel this dread, drain, anger, frustration? And like I said earlier, that can be tasks, it can be people, it can be relationships, anything. But think about the top 3 to 5 things that consume you in a day. And how does that make you feel?
Right. Right. You know, what's funny is one thing I love to do whenever I'm prepping for an interview is I'll look at what detractors say sometimes just to kind of get like a full perspective on how people feel about, you know, holistic approaches and the combination of that and the corporate world and the business world.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I found really, I mean, I find it absurd, but one of the things that some people would say is that they feel as though personal wellness and leadership, while both important, don't belong in the same room.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. What do you think of that ideology that personal wellness and leadership should be just completely separate things and they shouldn't be in the same room?
I would say we are coming on a new era, or maybe I've just, told myself this in my own brain, that we're becoming more open to
Yeah.
mental health and balancing, the leadership and the wellness. So I feel like we're headed in a different place with that. I don't know that we will ever completely change that perspective, but I think there's an openness to it. It's at least part of the conversation. Whereas historically, I would absolutely agree. It has not only been separated or that doesn't belong here. I would also say that it's looked at as that's a nice to have, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't make us money. And unless you can connect it to my bottom line, my dollar amount on my balance sheet, then I'm not interested. And so therefore, that's why it's separate, because whether you go to yoga class 5 days a week or not, doesn't impact whether I make $1 million more this year in revenue, when in fact it does. And very quick story here. I had a team years ago that would say, I subconsciously didn't know that they were picking up on this, but I would sit on the floor with them. And I remember sitting at my computer one day, I was going through an email and I must have breathed a certain way or what, just my energy. They could feel my energy. And one of them finally turned around and said, "Have you gone to yoga this week? Because I really think you should go if you haven't." And I laugh. I mean, it's obviously still sticks to me with this day this day, but I was like, wow. So if you don't think this is having an impact, how you take care of yourself doesn't show up on you in some way, you're mistaken. And then, you can connect the dots on how that shows up for the bottom line. If you have people that are overworked, burnout, frustrated, dealing with a million things up here and at home, how much are they really contributing to your bottom line? And why wouldn't you take care of them?
Right. I know that there's a lot of women that are listening right now being like, "Dr. Jodi, this all sounds great. However, I'm trying to juggle mental health, leadership, my career, family, finding my purpose, being, a wife or a daughter, a sister, a mom." And I can't tell you how many messages I've received from people that simply said, "I feel like I'm just failing at all of it. I'm just failing at all of it." And I know that I know for a fact that there's people listening right now that feel as though they hear all of what you're saying, but they're like, I don't know if I can do all of that. I don't know if I have the ability to do that. For those people that are listening right now, what would you say to them?
Wow. Super real. And I appreciate that because that's real life. So one, I would normalize that. and say, I can relate. I think, like you said, there are many listeners that probably feel the same way. Like, yeah, that sounds great, but there's no way. And I just feel like I'm failing. I would offer, look for one small thing in the day to day that provides a sense of validation, a sense of confidence. What is the one thing that you can grab onto for you? And it doesn't have to be that you sit down for 30 minutes in front of a candle and meditate. Like, that's not real either, you know? Um, and it can be sitting in your car before you go to work for 60 seconds and breathing.
Yeah.
But have it be something that feeds you. That's again where the magic is, in knowing you and knowing what's going to fulfill you or give you. If it's chaotic and failure is the emotion that's like, gosh, I'm just failing at everything, then find the one thing that you're going to win at every single day, that you can look at and say, I did that and I feel great about it, because that's the momentum. That's the energy that you want to be in and hang on to tackle the next thing and the next thing. And that sense of overwhelm is real. And the feeling of, gosh, I just feel defeated. I think I said those same words to my husband last week. I feel like I'm failing at this, and this, and it's not, you know, so normalize it. Know that it's okay that you're feeling that way. And if it is failure, find the win in the day. And if it's 1 minute, 30 seconds, whatever, but that's your one thing that you should and get to grab onto and say, I did that. And I feel this way because I did that.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of celebrating the small things, because I think oftentimes we are so focused on the big goal that we often overlook the little successes that we go along the way. Like, for example, if your goal is to buy a new house, right? But you can't afford to do so right now. So you're taking steps to be able to eventually get yourself to that point. Say you save your first $1,000, right? Did it reach your goal yet? No, but that's a small step forward, and that's something to celebrate. That's something to take joy in. And I feel like
Yes.
sometimes we just overlook those little tiny things, and it's easy to make it feel like we're failing because we haven't reached the top of that mountain yet. But we are at a summit. We are making progress, and that's something to celebrate. So I appreciate you saying that, because that I try my best to bring myself back down to earth when I feel like I'm failing, when I feel like I've, either hit a plateau or I'm just, all of this is for naught. Like I remind myself all, like, the little things, and I try to appreciate, even if it's something small. I appreciate that I have a roof over my head, a car to get me from point A to point B and back, and food on my table, and Wi-Fi, and like I appreciate those things, because that's what helps me get to the point that I want to get to. And it may seem absurd to think of like things like that, but like I think it's something that it's okay to celebrate that kind of stuff.
It's absolutely okay. And in fact, I think, I'm sure we've all heard of, gratitude begets more, and not that not that energy comes from a place of, well, I'm going to be grateful so that I get more. But the reality is, to say that I have a roof over my head, I'm safe, I'm fed, I can get from one place to another, that is a big deal. Think of people that can't say that, and imagine the emotions and the struggles that they're dealing with. And there is so much power in just, I woke up today, I'm breathing, I've got a safe place. Okay, it's time to go to work. I got this. Let's keep going.
Right. And that's also to clarify for those listening, because I know what people are thinking right now. That's not to diminish anybody's feelings of anything, like, like, not saying that your feelings are not genuine or not true or not valid. But I think what Dr. Jodi and I are trying to say is that it's okay to feel that way, but it's also, you shouldn't live there. Like, you should take the steps to find your way out of that. And that's what's really the most important thing. And I think that's really important to move yourself forward. Dr. Jodi, I appreciate you and your knowledge and your insight here, because I know for a fact, usually when I'm talking to somebody on a podcast, like I can usually tell when people are going to get something really good out of it.
Mhm.
And I know that you have dropped some information that people are going to get a lot out of. And for those of you that are listening that are like, I like Dr. Jodi, I want to get more information about her. I'm going
Yeah.
to include the links to all of Dr. Jodi's, pages and websites. That way, you can go explore yourself. I encourage you to go explore because there is something there for you, especially if you are a woman in the business world or if you're an entrepreneur, whatever it may be. Like, there's a lot of really good knowledge here, and this is a resource that you can utilize. Dr. Jodi, if you could leave the audience with one important, transformational thought or truth today, what would it be?
You got this. You got it. You got it. And sometimes that's all you need to hear. And sometimes the only person that's going to tell you that is you. So be that person. You got this. You are here. You are here for a reason. And you're on a journey. All these experiences and stuff that's happening for you and it's all happening for a reason. You got this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Again, I appreciate you. I'm going to include all of Dr. Jodi's stuff in the description of this podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
for having me. It was a blast. I loved it. Yes.
Yeah. I gotta have you back. So, I know there's a ton of things that we can, dive into even more specifically. And I think this was a good jumping off point. So I would love to have you back on so we can talk again, and all of that. So, thank you, Dr. Jodi, for hanging out with us.
And that's a wrap on this week's episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you found a little bit of comfort in today's episode, and I hope that you're walking away with a little bit of encouragement, and I hope that you laughed a little bit along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a review. Let me know what you thought of the episode. I really want to hear your voice. I want to hear your story. I want to hear all about your journey. Let's keep the conversation going. Make sure you follow me on all of your favorite social media platforms. Follow me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, at The Vibe with Kai for more tips, more laughs, and more real talk. Remember, my friends, you are not alone on this journey. We are in this together. And until next time, stay kind to yourself, embrace the journey, and keep vibing. I'll catch you next time. Much love. Good vibes.